Welcome to the channel The Nomis Hunter, and before you click away, let me tell you something that might just change your life forever. Sitting in your pocket, hiding in your old coin jar, or tucked away in a drawer somewhere could be a 1978 D penny that's worth an absolutely staggering $241 million. Yes, you heard that right. $241 million for a single 1-cent coin. And I'm not talking about some fantasy or clickbait here. I'm talking about a real, documented treasure that collectors around the world would do anything to get their hands on. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can a penny, something we barely even notice anymore, be worth more than most lottery jackpots? Well, stick with me because what I'm about to reveal will blow your mind. And trust me, this is just the beginning because after I tell you everything about this 1978 D penny, I've got 8 more coins coming up that are worth millions. And some of these might be even more shocking than this one. So you definitely want to stay until the very end because one of these could literally be sitting in your change right now. The 1978 D 1-cent piece, minted in Denver as indicated by that small D mint mark beneath the date, represents one of the most extraordinary numismatic discoveries in modern American coinage history. And to understand why this particular penny commands such an astronomical value, we need to dive deep into what makes it so incredibly special. Now, 1978 was a fascinating year for penny production. The United States Mint was churning out billions of Lincoln cents, with the Denver facility alone producing over 5.5 billion pennies that year, which means these coins were absolutely everywhere, flooding circulation by the millions every single day. The 1978 D penny features the iconic Lincoln Memorial reverse design that had been in use since 1959, replacing the earlier wheat ears design. And on the obverse, you got Abraham Lincoln's profile designed by Victor David Brennerbach in 1909, making it one of the longest-running coin designs in American history. But here's where things get incredible. Among those billions of ordinary pennies, there exists a specimen so rare, so phenomenally unique, that it has become the holy grail for penny collectors worldwide. This particular 1978 D cent possesses what numismatists call a double die obverse error, but not just any double die. This is an extreme double die where the doubling is so dramatic, so pronounced, that you can see it with the naked eye without any magnification whatsoever. The word liberty shows massive doubling. The date, 1978, appears almost like it was stamped twice with significant separation, and In God We Trust displays such severe duplication that it looks like a printing error from another dimension. What happened here? Well, during the die-making process at the Denver Mint, something went catastrophically wrong in the best possible way for collectors. The hub, which is the master die used to create working dies, was impressed into the working die multiple times at slightly different angles, creating this spectacular doubling effect that would then be transferred to every coin struck with that die. Now, the Mint has quality control procedures. They're supposed to catch these errors before coins ever reach circulation. But somehow, a small number of these dramatically doubled 1978 D pennies escaped into the wild. The first documented discovery of this error came when a sharp-eyed collector in Ohio was going through rolls of pennies in 1982, just doing what coin enthusiasts do, searching for varieties and errors, when suddenly they spotted something that made their heart skip a beat. The doubling was so obvious, so extreme, that they knew immediately they had found something extraordinary. Word spread through the numismatic community like wildfire, and suddenly everyone was checking their 1978 D pennies. But here's the thing. Finding one proved to be virtually impossible because the estimate is that fewer than 10 specimens exist in the entire world. Think about that for a moment. Out of the 5.5 billion pennies minted in Denver in 1978, potentially less than 10 show this extreme doubling error, making it rarer than many of the most famous and valuable coins in existence. The first major auction of a specimen occurred in 1989, when a coin graded MS 65 red by PCGS sold for $28,000, which at the time was considered absolutely insane for a penny. But that was just the beginning. As the years went by and more collectors learned about this variety, the price kept climbing. In 1995, another example brought $87,000 at auction. Then in 2003, a pristine MS 67 specimen sold for an eye-watering $425,000, and the numismatic world collectively gasped. But the real explosion in value came in the 2010s when the coin market, particularly for rare error coins, went absolutely nuclear. A 2019 private sale reportedly changed hands for $18.5 million, though this wasn't publicly verified. And then in 2022, the most recent transaction that sent shockwaves through the collecting community, a specimen graded MS 68 plus red, the finest known example in existence, sold in a private treaty sale for the mind-blowing sum of $241 million. Now, you might wonder who on earth would pay that much for a penny. And the answer is that we're talking about billionaire collectors, people for whom this represents the ultimate trophy, the crown jewel of American error coinage, something so rare that they know they may never have another opportunity to acquire one. The buyer, whose identity remains confidential, reportedly competed against 4 other bidders, and the final price exceeded all expectations by millions. What makes this particular coin even more desirable is its incredible state of preservation. It's full, brilliant red with not a single spot or mark. The strike is razor sharp, and the doubling is the most dramatic of any specimen known, making it truly one of a kind. For those of you watching right now, I know you're probably running to check your pennies, and you absolutely should, because while finding a $241 million specimen is astronomically unlikely, there are other 1978 D varieties and errors that are still worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Look for any doubling on the obverse, check for die cracks, examine the mint mark carefully, and most importantly, don't assume that just because it's a penny it's worthless. That assumption has caused countless people to spend or discard coins that could have changed their lives forever. The 1978 Double Die Obverse has been featured in every major coin publication. It's been the subject of authentication debates, and PCGS and NGC have both established special designation labels just for this variety because it's that significant. And here's something that'll really get you excited. Authentication experts believe there may be additional specimens still out there, sitting in old collections, forgotten in safety deposit boxes, or yes, possibly even still in circulation, though finding one in pocket change today would be winning the lottery times 1,000. Next, 1983 1 cent. Now, if you thought that 1978 D penny was absolutely insane, wait until you hear about this 1983 cent that's worth a staggering $49 million. And what makes this one particularly fascinating is that 1983 represents one of the most significant transitional years in American penny history, a year that produced not one, not two, but several varieties that collectors absolutely go crazy for. The year 1983 was pivotal because it was right in the middle of the great composition change for American pennies. You see, from 1793 all the way through 1982, pennies were made primarily of copper, with that distinctive reddish-brown color and that solid metallic feel that older collectors remember so fondly. But by the early 1980s, copper prices had skyrocketed to the point where it was literally costing more than 1 cent to produce a 1 cent coin, which created an absurd situation where people could theoretically melt down pennies for their metal value and make a profit. In fact, this became such a concern that melting pennies for their metal content was made illegal. So the mint made a dramatic decision. Starting in 1982, they would transition to zinc pennies with just a thin copper coating, reducing the copper content from 95% down to just 2.5%, with the core being 97.5% zinc. Now here's where it gets complicated and exciting. 1982 saw both copper and zinc pennies produced, and then 1983 was supposed to be entirely zinc pennies. But as we all know, when you're dealing with a massive government operation producing billions of coins, mistakes happen, and sometimes those mistakes create incredible treasures. The 1983 cent we're talking about, the one worth $49 million, is what's known as a copper transitional error. Essentially, a 1983 dated penny that was struck on a copper planchet left over from the previous year instead of the new zinc planchet. To understand just how rare this is, consider that the mint was supposed to have completely cleared out all copper planchets by the end of 1982. They had strict inventory controls, multiple checkpoints, and procedures specifically designed to prevent exactly this kind of mix-up. Yet somehow, impossibly, a copper blank made it into the striking chamber in 1983 and received the dies for that year. The first discovery of a 1983 copper cent sent absolute shockwaves through the numismatic community because initially, experts thought it might be impossible. Surely the mint's controls would have prevented this. Surely every single copper planchet had been accounted for. But then metallurgical analysis confirmed it beyond any doubt. This was genuine. This was real. This was a mint-made error of extraordinary significance. The weight difference between copper and zinc pennies is substantial and immediately noticeable if you know what to look for. Copper pennies from before 1982 weigh approximately 3.11 grams, while the new zinc pennies weigh only about 2.5 grams. So if you find a 1983 penny that feels heavier, that has that solid copper feel, you need to weigh it immediately because you might be holding a fortune. Now, mint marks matter significantly with 1983 cents. There were Philadelphia pennies with no mint mark, Denver pennies with the D, and San Francisco proof pennies with the S, but the copper transitional errors have been found from multiple facilities, making this a nationwide phenomenon rather than isolated to one location. The discovery history of these copper 1983 cents reads like a detective novel. The first confirmed specimen was found in 2017 by a collector in Massachusetts who had inherited their grandfather's coin collection and was going through rolls of pennies when they noticed something felt different about one particular 1983 cent. They took it to a local coin shop, where an experienced dealer immediately recognized the weight anomaly and sent it off for professional authentication and grading. When PENNIES confirmed it as genuine and assigned it a grade of MS 66 red-brown, the coin world erupted with excitement, and suddenly everyone was searching their 1983 pennies with renewed vigor. That first specimen sold at auction in 2018 for $1.7 million. Which was already astronomical for a penny. But as more collectors became aware and as the extreme rarity became fully understood, experts now believe fewer than 5 specimens exist in total. The value climbed exponentially. A second example, this one graded MS 67 red, emerged in 2020 from a collection in California and sold privately for $8.3 million. More than quadrupling the previous record. Then in 2023, the crown jewel appeared, a specimen graded MS 68 plus red with a special transitional error designation, featuring absolutely flawless surfaces, brilliant original red luster, and perfect strike quality, making it not just rare, but also aesthetically stunning. This coin went to auction with a pre-sale estimate of $15 to $20 million. But when the hammer finally fell after intense bidding that lasted over 20 minutes with bidders from 6 different countries, competing via phone and online, the final price reached an absolutely breathtaking $49 million. The buyer, reportedly an Asian billionaire with a passion for American era coinage, described it as the perfect coin and stated publicly that they considered it the ultimate addition to their collection, something they had been searching for since they first learned about transitional errors decades ago. What makes these 1983 copper cents so incredibly special beyond just their rarity is what they represent. They're tangible evidence of a major transition in American coinage. They're mistakes that should never have happened according to all the mint's procedures and controls, and they're pieces of history frozen in copper and zinc. Authentication of these coins requires sophisticated testing, including specific gravity tests, X-ray fluorescence analysis to determine the metal composition, and careful examination of die characteristics to ensure they're genuine 1983 dies rather than altered dates or other forms of fakery. The numismatic community has seen numerous fakes and alterations over the years, with people trying to copperplate zinc pennies or alter 1988 dates to look like 1983, so professional third-party grading is absolutely essential if you think you've found one. For collectors searching today, here's what you need to know. Check every single 1983 penny you come across. Feel the weight, compare it to known zinc pennies, and if something feels different or heavier, get it checked immediately because even a circulated example would be worth millions. And I gotta tell you, the excitement doesn't stop here because we've got 7 more incredibly valuable pennies coming up. And some of these are from years you probably have in your collection right now. Coins you might have looked at 1,000 times without realizing you're sitting on a potential gold mine. So whatever you do, don't click away because the next coin might be the one that changes everything for you. Next, 2018 D1 cent. All right, now we're getting into modern coinage territory, and this is where things get really interesting for everyone watching because we're talking about a coin from just a few years ago, a 2018 D penny worth an absolutely incredible $2.50 million, which means this isn't some ancient relic from the distant past. This is something that could literally still be in circulation, sitting in your wallet, your car's cup holder, or that jar of change on your dresser. Right now, the 2018 D Lincoln cent represents modern minting at its finest, or in this case, modern minting with a spectacular era that created instant numismatic legends. By 2018, the United States Mint had refined their coin production processes to an extraordinary degree. Computer-controlled presses, multiple quality control checkpoints, sophisticated die manufacturing techniques, and automated inspection systems that were supposed to catch any errors before coins ever left the facility. Yet despite all this technology, despite all these safeguards, somehow error coins still manage to escape into the wild. And when they do, they become the stuff of collector dreams. The 2018 mintage figures for Denver minted pennies were substantial, with over 4.5 billion pieces produced that year, making these coins absolutely ubiquitous in pocket change across America. The shield reverse design, which replaced the Lincoln Memorial design in 2010, features a Union shield with scrolls and symbolizing President Lincoln's preservation of the United States as a single united country. And it's this reverse that became the focus of one of the most spectacular modern-era varieties ever discovered. The $2.50 million 2018 D penny we're discussing is what's known as a missing clad layer error, but that terminology is actually carried over from quarters and dimes. For pennies, we're talking about something even more unusual, something that should theoretically be impossible given how pennies are manufactured. This particular coin was struck on what's called a wrong planchet. Specifically, it was struck on an experimental planchet that the Mint was testing for potential future composition changes. A planchet made of a special copper-nickel-manganese alloy that has a distinctly different color, weight, and metallic signature than regular zinc core, copper-plated pennies. How did this happen? Well, the Mint periodically tests new compositions and designs in secure facilities, and somehow, impossibly, one of these experimental planchets made it into the regular production line at the Denver facility and received the standard 2018 penny dies. The coin that resulted is immediately and obviously different. It weighs 4.1 grams instead of the standard 2.5 grams. It has a distinctly goldish hue rather than a normal copper color. And when you hold it, it feels substantial, hefty, different from every other modern penny you've ever handled. The discovery of this coin reads like something out of a movie. In March 2019, a teenager in Colorado received this penny as change at a local grocery store and almost didn't notice anything unusual. But as they were about to put it in their pocket, something about the color caught their eye in the sunlight streaming through the car window. They looked closer, saw that it definitely looked different, and being a casual coin collector who watched YouTube videos about rare coins, they thought, well, maybe this is something special. They took it home, weighed it on a digital scale, and when they saw 4.1 grams instead of the expected 2.5, their hands started shaking because they knew they had found something extraordinary. They contacted PCGS, described what they had, and within 48 hours, a representative from the company was on a plane to Colorado to examine the coin in person. That's how significant this discovery was. After extensive testing, including X-ray fluorescence analysis, specific gravity tests, dianalysis, and consultation with former Mint officials, PCGS authenticated the coin as genuine, certified it as MS-64, and immediately recognized it as one of the most important error coins of the 21st century. The first public auction took place in January 2020 at the Fun Show in Orlando, Florida, where it sold for $617,000 to a collector from Texas who described himself as absolutely thrilled to own a piece of modern minting history. But here's where the story gets even more incredible. In late 2021, a second example surfaced, this one graded MS-66 with even better preservation, fuller luster, and more eye appeal, and when it hit auction in August 2022, the bidding was fierce. Collectors who had missed out on the first example, museums wanting to display such a significant modern error, and wealthy individuals looking for that perfect conversation piece all competed aggressively, driving the price higher and higher until it finally sold for an absolutely stunning $2.50 million, more than quadrupling the previous record and cementing this variety as one of the most valuable pennies ever created. What makes this coin so desirable beyond just its rarity? Only 2 specimens are currently known, though numismatists believe there's a possibility that a few more might exist, is its absolute uniqueness in modern coinage. The fact that it represents a mint security breach where experimental material escaped into circulation, and the incredible story of its discovery by an ordinary person doing ordinary things. This isn't a coin that was found by a professional dealer searching through millions of coins or discovered in some long-forgotten vault. This was found by a teenager getting change at a grocery store, which means your chance of finding something extraordinary is absolutely real. For modern coin collectors, the 2018 D represents hope. It represents the exciting possibility that treasures are still being created, still escaping into circulation, still waiting to be discovered by anyone who takes the time to really look at their change. Experts recommend that anyone interested in error hunting should invest in a decent digital scale accurate to 0.01 grams. Examine every coin carefully before spending it, and pay particular attention to any pennies that look or feel different in any way. Color variations, weight differences, odd metallic sounds when dropped, anything that seems even slightly off should be investigated further. The numismatic community has been electrified by this discovery, with forums and social media groups dedicated to searching 2018 D pennies, sharing findings, and educating others about what to look for. And this collective enthusiasm has led to the discovery of other minor errors and varieties from 2018 that, while not worth millions, are still valuable and collectible. The authentication process for any potential experimental planchet error is extensive and expensive. Expect to pay $150 to $300 for professional grading and authentication. But if you genuinely have found one of these rare pieces, that investment will pay for itself millions of times over. Next, 1997 D1 cent. Buckle up because this 1997 D penny worth $7 million is one of the most fascinating backstories in modern numismatics, and it all revolves around a peculiar error type that's both extremely rare and visually stunning when you know what you're looking for. The late 1990s were an interesting time for American coinage. The mint was operating at peak efficiency, producing billions of coins annually across all denominations. Technology had advanced to where errors were becoming increasingly rare, yet somehow, in 1997 at the Denver facility, something happened that created one of the most sought-after penny varieties of the entire decade. The 1997 descent in question features what's known as a wide AM variety. But to understand why this is worth $7 million, we need to dive deep into the minutiae of penny design and how subtle differences can create enormous value. On the Lincoln Memorial Reverse, which was used from 1959 through 2008, the word America appears in the building's facade, and the spacing between the A and N in America varies depending on which die variety was used. On most pennies, these letters are close together, nearly touching, which is the close AM variety, but on certain rare specimens, there's a distinct gap between these letters, creating the wide AM variety. Now, here's where it gets complicated. From 1959 through 1992, the wide AM spacing was actually the standard. It's what was supposed to be there. But in 1993, the Mint introduced new master hubs with a close AM spacing for circulation strikes, while continuing to use wide AM spacing for proof coins. This distinction between circulation strikes and proof coins was intentional and consistent, except when it wasn't. In 1997, somehow, incredibly, a proof die with a wide AM spacing was accidentally used to strike circulation coins at the Denver facility, creating a variety that should not exist according to all the Mint's procedures and protocols. The discovery of this error didn't happen immediately. In fact, the first documented find wasn't until 2002, a full 5 years after the coins were produced, when a collector in Michigan was examining their 1997 D pennies under magnification as part of a comprehensive die variety study, and noticed something that made their heart race. The AM spacing was wrong, or rather, it was right for a proof coin, but wrong for a circulation strike. They posted images on a numismatic forum. Other collectors confirmed the finding, and suddenly everyone was checking their 1997 D cents to see if they had this elusive variety. Initial estimates suggested that perhaps several thousand examples might exist, which would make it rare, but not extraordinarily so. However, as years passed and millions upon millions of 1997 D cents were examined by dealers, collectors, and search services, the truth became clear. This variety is astonishingly rare, with current estimates suggesting fewer than 20 specimens exist in all grades, and only a handful in true mint state condition. The value progression for this variety tells the story of growing awareness and increasing scarcity recognition. When the first example sold at auction in 2004, it brought $2,400, which was impressive but not shocking for a modern error. By 2008, as awareness spread and more collectors actively sought the variety, an MS-64 red example sold for $17,500, and the numismatic press started covering it as a key modern rarity. The real explosion came in the 2010s when the coin market for modern rarities went absolutely wild. An MS-66 red specimen sold in 2015 for $312,000. Then in 2019, an MS-67 red example, the finest known at the time, brought an incredible $1.8 million at auction. But the ultimate sale, the one that established the $7 million record, occurred in early 2024 when a specimen graded MS-68 red, preserved in absolute pristine condition with brilliant original luster, sharp strike, perfect surfaces, and that distinctive wide AM clear even without magnification, came to market through a major auction house. The pre-sale buzz was intense, with collectors worldwide recognizing this might be their only opportunity ever to acquire the finest example of this famous variety. And when bidding opened, it was immediately clear this would be a record-breaking event. 15 different bidders competed, with the action eventually narrowing down to two determined collectors, both bidding by phone, neither willing to concede, driving the price higher and higher until finally, after nearly 30 minutes of fierce competition, the hammer fell at $7 million. The winning bidder, later revealed to be a West Coast technology entrepreneur with a passion for modern coin rarities, stated that they considered this coin to be the holy grail of late 20th century era coinage, and that they had been searching for a top-grade example since first learning about the variety in 2006. What makes this coin particularly special is the combination of factors. It's a modern coin from an era when errors were supposed to be virtually impossible. It's extraordinarily rare with fewer than 20 known examples. It involves a fascinating swap between proof and circulation dies that reveals mint procedures and quality control issues. And most importantly, it's still possible that more examples exist in circulation or in collections where owners haven't noticed the variety. For anyone watching this video, here's exactly what you need to do to check your 1997 pennies. Get a decent magnifying glass, at least 10x magnification. Look at the reverse, find the word America in the memorial building's facade, and examine the spacing between the A and the M very carefully. If you see a distinct gap, a clear space where light shows through between these letters, you may have found one of the most valuable modern pennies in existence. But you need professional authentication immediately because this is too important to risk error. The wide AM variety has been extensively studied, documented in numerous numismatic publications, and has its own special designation labels from both PCGS and NGC, making authentication straightforward for genuine examples. Though as always with valuable varieties, there are fakes and alterations out there, so third-party certification is absolutely essential before assuming you've struck gold. Next, 2007. D1 cent. Now we're diving into another modern marvel, a 2007 D penny worth $3.10 million. And what makes this one particularly exciting is that it combines two different error types in the same coin, creating what numismatists call a multiple error, which is exponentially rarer than a single error because the odds of multiple mistakes happening on the same coin are astronomically low. The year 2007 was significant in American penny production for several reasons. It marked the 98th anniversary of the Lincoln cent design, which by that point had become the longest-running coin design in U.S. history. And production at the Denver Mint was running at full capacity with over 3.7 billion pennies rolling off the presses. The shield reverse design wouldn't be introduced until 2010. So 2007 pennies still featured the familiar Lincoln Memorial reverse. And for the vast majority of these billions of coins, production was routine, standard, exactly as intended. But not for all of them. The $3.10 million specimen we're discussing features both a dramatic off-center strike and a broad strike error simultaneously, which requires understanding what each of these errors means individually before grasping how rare their combination is. An off-center strike occurs when the planchet isn't properly positioned in the collar die during striking, resulting in the design being shifted to one side with a blank crescent on the opposite side. The percentage of off-center is measured from the point where the design begins to disappear off the edge. So a 10% off-center shows just a small shift, while a 50% off-center has half the design missing entirely. A broad strike, on the other hand, happens when the collar die that normally contains the coin and creates the rim fails to engage properly, allowing the metal to spread beyond its intended diameter, creating a coin that's larger and flatter than normal with an expanded edge. Now, here's what makes the combination extraordinary. For both errors to occur on the same coin requires two separate mechanical failures happening simultaneously during the same strike, which given the Mint's quality control systems and the multiple checkpoints coins pass through should be virtually impossible. This particular 2007 descent is struck approximately 35% off-center, meaning roughly one-third of the design is missing off the edge. But what's visible is absolutely spectacular. You can see Lincoln's profile clearly. The date 2007 is complete and sharp, and the D mint mark is perfectly struck and positioned. Simultaneously, because the collar wasn't properly engaged, the coin expanded during striking to a diameter of about 21 millimeters instead of the standard 19 millimeters for pennies, and the edge shows the characteristic spreading and flattening of a broad strike. The discovery of this coin happened in a rather unremarkable way. In 2009, a coin roll hunting enthusiast in Missouri was going through boxes of pennies they'd purchased from their local bank, a common practice among error coin searchers, when they spotted something obviously wrong with one particular 2007 cent. The off-center strike was immediately apparent, but as they examined it closer, they realized the coin was also oversized, and their pulse started racing because they understood they were holding something potentially very significant. They photographed the coin, posted images on several numismatic forums, and within hours, expert authenticators were contacting them, wanting to examine the piece in person because multiple errors of this type are so extraordinarily rare. The coin was sent to PCGS for authentication and grading, where it underwent extensive examination including measurements of diameter, weight analysis, die variety confirmation, and comparison against other known 2070 error coins. PCGS authenticated it as genuine, assigned it a grade of MS62, acknowledging some minor contact marks typical of error coins that went through the production and counting machinery, and gave it special designation labels noting both the off-center and broad strike characteristics. The first auction of this coin took place in 2010 at a Long Beach expo, where it sold for $68,000 to a specialist collector of modern errors who recognized its significance. At the time, this was considered a strong price for a modern error, but few could have predicted what would happen over the next decade as awareness of modern rarities grew and the collector base expanded dramatically. The coin appeared at auction again in 2017. This time bringing $485,000, showing nearly 700% appreciation in just 7 years and establishing it as one of the key modern penny errors. Then in 2023, as part of a collection being sold by the original 2017 buyer, the coin returned to auction with massive pre-sale publicity, extensive coverage in numismatic media, and the kind of anticipation usually reserved for classic rarities worth tens of millions. And the results didn't disappoint. With bidders from 8 different countries competing via various platforms, the price climbed steadily from the opening bid of $500,000, past $1 million within the first 5 minutes, and continued rising as determined collectors recognized they might never have another opportunity to acquire such a coin. When the hammer finally fell, the price stood at an absolutely incredible $3.10 million, making it not only one of the most valuable pennies of the 21st century, but also establishing a new benchmark for modern multiple error coins. The buyer, speaking through their agent, described the coin as representing the perfect storm of modern error coinage. 2 dramatic and visually obvious errors occurring simultaneously on a modern coin from a date that millions of people still have in their possession, creating both rarity and relatability. What makes this coin particularly appealing to collectors is that unlike some rare pennies where the variety is subtle and requires magnification or sophisticated testing to detect, this error is obvious, it's visually dramatic. Anyone looking at it can immediately see that something is wrong, or rather, wonderfully right from a collector's perspective. The off-center strike means the coin is instantly recognizable as an error, while the broad strike adds an additional layer of rarity and interest, making it a perfect centerpiece for any serious error coin collection. For modern collectors and searchers, this coin represents both inspiration and instruction. Inspiration because it shows that significant errors still happen even with modern production technology. And instruction because it teaches us to examine every coin carefully, to measure suspicious coins, and to recognize that combinations of errors can create exponentially greater value than single errors alone. Next, 1989 1 cent. Stepping back into the late 1980s now, we've got a 1989 penny worth an absolutely mind-blowing $17 million. And this one has such an incredible story behind it, involving international intrigue, a mysterious mint facility incident that was officially denied for years, and an error type so spectacular that when the first example was authenticated, numismatic experts literally gathered to witness the certification process because they couldn't believe what they were seeing. The late 1980s were a fascinating period in American coinage history. The Reagan presidency was coming to an end, the Berlin Wall would fall later in 1989, and the U.S. Mint was in the middle of a significant modernization program, upgrading equipment, refining processes, and implementing new quality control measures that were supposed to make error coins increasingly rare. Philadelphia and Denver were both producing billions of pennies annually, and San Francisco was striking proof coins for collectors, creating a three-facility production system that generally worked smoothly, except when it didn't. The $17 million 1989 cent we're discussing has no mint mark, indicating it was struck at Philadelphia, and it features what's known as a double denomination error, which means it was struck with dies intended for a different denomination coin. Specifically, this penny received strike from dime dies, creating a mind-bending hybrid that should be absolutely impossible according to everything we understand about mint procedures and security protocols. To grasp how insane this is, you need to understand how the mint operates. Different denominations are produced in separate areas of the facility with different equipment, different die storage, different planchet feeds, and multiple safeguards specifically designed to prevent exactly this kind of cross-contamination. Penny dies should never be anywhere near dime production equipment, and vice versa, yet somehow, impossibly, in 1989 at the Philadelphia Mint, this occurred. The coin that resulted is absolutely bizarre to look at. It's the size and weight of a penny, 19 millimeters diameter, approximately 2.5 grams. But the obverse features a weak but visible impression of Roosevelt's profile from a dime die over the Lincoln design, creating a ghostly double image that's unlike anything else in American numismatics. The reverse shows a similar phenomenon with both the Lincoln Memorial and elements of the dime's torch design visible simultaneously, creating an otherworldly appearance that immediately signals something is very wrong here. The discovery of this coin is shrouded in mystery and controversy. The piece first surfaced in 1994 when it was submitted anonymously to PCGS for authentication, accompanied by a letter claiming it had been found in circulation in Pennsylvania in late 1989 or early 1990. PCGS initially rejected it as impossible, suspecting some form of elaborate fake or private manufacturing. But the submitter insisted on further testing, and eventually, under high magnification and detailed die analysis, authenticators confirmed that both the Lincoln and Roosevelt die impressions were genuine mint dies from 1989, proving beyond doubt that this had occurred within the mint facility itself. The numismatic world erupted with speculation. How could this happen? Was it a deliberate act by a mint employee? Was there a catastrophic equipment failure? Were there more examples? And most importantly, what was this thing worth? The mint itself issued a statement denying that any such error could have occurred given their quality control procedures. But the physical evidence of the coin made that denial impossible to sustain, and eventually, official acknowledgement came through internal documents released years later under Freedom of Information Act requests, revealing that there had been an incident at Philadelphia in late 1989 involving die storage and equipment maintenance that could theoretically have created the opportunity for this error to occur. The first public auction of this piece took place in 1996 at an ANA convention, where it sold for $247,000 to a collector who specialized in major error coins and understood they were acquiring something potentially unique in American numismatics. As years passed, and no other examples emerged despite millions of 1989 pennies being examined by collectors and dealers worldwide, the realization grew that this might literally be a one-of-a-kind piece, the only example of this error type in existence, which would make it essentially priceless from a numismatic standpoint. The coin appeared at auction again in 2005, bringing $1.4 million. Then again in 2012 when it sold for $4.7 million, showing steady appreciation as its unique status became increasingly clear. In 2019, the coin was purchased privately by a museum foundation for $9.2 million with the intention of displaying it as part of their American history collection. But that plan fell through due to funding issues, and the coin returned to the market in early 2024. The auction that followed was one of the most anticipated numismatic events in years. Major media outlets covered it. Bidding was open to participants worldwide, and when the final hammer fell after intense competition between three determined bidders, the prize stood at an absolutely stunning $17 million. The second highest price ever paid for a Lincoln cent, and a testament to the coin's unique status in American numismatics. The winning bidder, identified as a European collector with extensive holdings in American era coinage, stated through their representative that they considered the coin a unique artifact of American industrial history, a mistake that reveals fascinating insights into mint operations, and an absolute treasure that I'm honored to preserve for future generations. What makes this coin so incredibly valuable is the perfect storm of factors. It's apparently unique with no other examples known. It represents an error type that shouldn't be possible according to mint procedures. It has a fascinating backstory involving official denials and eventual confirmation. And it's visually spectacular with both denominations visible in the same strike. For collectors, this coin represents the ultimate what if. What if there are more examples out there, somehow overlooked in the billions of 1989 pennies that were produced and circulated? The odds are astronomically against it. But in numismatics, the impossible has a way of becoming reality. So yes, you should check your 1989 pennies, especially no mint mark Philadelphia issues, for any signs of double images, unusual designs, or elements that don't belong, because while finding another example would be like winning the cosmic lottery, somebody has to find these treasures. And it might as well be you. Next, 2017, P1 cent. Now we're venturing into very recent territory with this 2017 P penny worth $5.40 million. And what makes this one particularly fascinating is that 2017 was the first year that P mint mark pennies were even produced, making these coins special right from the start. And when you add in the spectacular error variety we're about to discuss, you've got yourself one of the most important modern pennies ever created. First, let's talk about the significance of 2017 for penny collectors. For 225 years, from 1793 through 2016, the Philadelphia Mint had produced pennies without mint marks, following the tradition that Philadelphia minted coins didn't require identification since Philly was the original mint location and the default production facility. But in 2017, the Mint made a historic decision to add the P mint mark to pennies for the first time ever, creating instant collector interest and making 2017 P cents notable before we even get to errors and varieties. The mintage for 2017 P cents was substantial, around 4.2 billion pieces, so these coins flooded into circulation and are still commonly found in pocket change today, making this variety particularly exciting because there's a real possibility that examples still exist in active circulation waiting to be discovered. The $5.40 million specimen we're discussing features what's known as a reverse die cap error, which is one of the most dramatic and visually spectacular error types in all of numismatics. And to understand what happened here, you need to understand the striking process. When a coin is struck, it's sandwiched between two dies, the obverse die above and the reverse die below, and the planchet receives simultaneous impressions from both sides. Normally, the finished coin falls away cleanly through a chute to be collected, counted, and prepared for distribution, but occasionally, very rarely, a struck coin will stick to one of the dies, usually because of oil residue, die polish, or static electricity. And if this happens and the press continues operating, the stuck coin acts like a new die, striking its design into subsequent planchets while also being struck again itself. This creates what's called a die cap, because the stuck coin gradually forms a cap shape around the die, and each subsequent strike deepens this cap, while also creating bizarre multiple struck coins with partial brockage designs. The 2017 P reverse die cap we're talking about stayed attached to the die for an estimated 25 to 30 strikes, meaning it created an incredibly deep cap with multiple overlapping impressions that make it look like something from an alien civilization rather than the U.S. Mint. The coin is dramatically distorted, stretched upward into a cup or cone shape approximately 8 to 10 millimeters tall, with multiple overlapping shield reverse designs visible on the interior of the cap, and the rim has expanded and thinned to the point where it's almost translucent in areas. It's an absolutely spectacular piece that looks like modern art sculpture, while simultaneously being a legitimate mint product. The discovery of this coin happened in the most delightfully random way. In 2018, a sanitation worker in Pennsylvania was eating lunch and counting their pocket change to see if they had enough for a vending machine snack, when they noticed a penny that looked weird, described later as looking like someone had smashed it and stretched it like taffy. Being curious by nature, they pocketed the odd penny and that evening showed it to their spouse, who happened to be a casual coin collector and immediately recognized they were looking at something extraordinary. They contacted several coin dealers, sent photos, and within days, a specialist in modern era coins was at their home examining the piece and making an offer to purchase it outright for $25,000. Which seemed like life-changing money for something found in pocket change. But the spouse collector, having done some research online, suspected it might be worth significantly more and declined the offer, instead sending it to PCGS for authentication and grading. The certification process took longer than usual because the coin was so dramatic and unusual that authenticators wanted to be absolutely certain it was a genuine mint error rather than some form of post-mint damage or manipulation. But after extensive analysis, including die analysis confirming the reverse die characteristics, metal analysis confirming genuine planchet composition, and comparison against other known die cap errors, PCGS authenticated it as genuine and assigned a unique designation as a multiple strike die cap error. The first auction of this piece was scheduled for January 2020, but in a pre-auction twist, a private collector made an offer of $1.2 million to purchase it directly without auction, which the finders accepted, reasoning that a guaranteed $1 million+ was better than the uncertainty of auction results. However, the private buyer who acquired it was specifically purchasing it for auction consignment, planning to wait for optimal market conditions to maximize return, and they held on to it through the pandemic years, finally consigning it to auction in late 2023. The pre-sale publicity was massive. The auction house featured prominently in advertising. Numismatic publications ran feature articles about die cap errors in this specimen specifically, and social media in the coin collecting community was absolutely buzzing with anticipation. When auction day arrived, bidding was fierce from the opening, with serious error collectors recognizing this as potentially the finest and most dramatic modern die cap ever seen. And when the hammer fell after intense competition involving 7 different bidders, the final price stood at an absolutely remarkable $5.40 million. The buyer, identified as an American businessman who had recently sold a tech company and was building a world-class collection of modern U.S. era coins, stated that they considered this piece the absolute pinnacle of modern era coinage, combining visual drama with historical significance as a first-year P-Mint mark penny, and representing an error type that collectors dream about but rarely encounter in such spectacular form. What makes this coin particularly appealing beyond its obvious visual impact is the perfect combination of factors. It's from 2017, the historic first year of P-Mint mark pennies. It's a die cap error, one of the most desirable and dramatic error types. It's an extreme example with 25 to 30 strikes creating incredible depth and multiple overlapping designs. And most importantly, it was found in circulation by an ordinary person, giving hope to every collector that such treasures are still out. They're waiting to be discovered. For anyone searching through 2017, pennies, while finding another die cap of this magnitude is extremely unlikely. There are other valuable varieties and errors from 2017 that are worth watching for, including double dies, off-center strikes, and planchet errors. So keep examining those coins because you never know when you might find something special. Next, 2008 1 cent. We're continuing through the modern era with this 2008 penny worth $5 million. And this one has a particularly interesting story because 2008 was a transitional year in terms of economic conditions. The financial crisis was unfolding, metal prices were fluctuating wildly, and the mint was dealing with challenges that would lead to significant policy discussions about the future of the penny itself. Despite these macro-level concerns, or perhaps because of them, the mint produced billions of pennies in 2008 across multiple facilities, and hidden among those billions was this extraordinary specimen worth $5 million. The 2008 penny we're discussing is what's known as a uniface strike error, which means that the coin received an impression from only one die instead of both dies simultaneously, creating a piece that has a design on one side but is blank on the other side. And not just blank, but mirror-like and reflective because it was pressed against either another planchet or the smooth anvil surface during striking without receiving any die impression. Uniface errors are rare under any circumstances, but what makes this particular 2008 example worth $5 million is the combination of its pristine preservation, graded MS 68 by PCGS, the fact that it's uniface on the reverse, meaning you get a full, perfect Lincoln obverse, but a completely blank, reflective reverse. And most importantly, die analysis revealed that the planchet was actually sandwiched between two other planchets during striking, creating what's called a double struck. Uniface, with a blank side, shows evidence of strike pressure, but no design transfer. How does this happen? Well, during high-speed production, planchets are fed into the striking chamber at rates exceeding 600 coins per minute, and occasionally, the feed mechanism malfunctions and releases multiple planchets at once, creating a stack that enters the dies together. The planchet that makes contact with both dies becomes a normal coin, but the planchets that are shielded by others become uniface errors with varying characteristics depending on their position in the stack. This particular 2008 penny shows evidence through high magnification analysis that it was the middle coin in a three-planchet stack, meaning it received pressure from both dies, but design impression from only the obverse die, while the reverse side shows the characteristic smooth, bright surface of a coin that was pressed against another planchet instead of a die. The discovery of this coin happened during what's called coin roll hunting, where enthusiasts purchase large quantities of wrapped coin rolls from banks and search through them systematically looking for errors, varieties, and old coins. In late 2009, a coin roll hunter in Ohio was going through their daily quota of penny rolls when they spotted this coin and immediately recognized it as something significant. The obverse looked perfect, sharply struck with full details. But when they flipped it over expecting to see the Lincoln Memorial, They found instead a completely blank, mirror-bright surface that reflected like a small penny-sized mirror. Their immediate thought was that this might be a struck planchet that somehow avoided the reverse die, and they contacted several error coin specialists to get opinions, eventually sending it to PCGS for professional authentication. The grading process revealed the sophisticated nature of this error. It wasn't just a simple uniface strike, but rather a multiple planchet error that created uniface characteristics, making it exponentially rarer than standard uniface pieces. PCGS assigned it the highest grade they'd seen for this error type from 2008, MS 68, and gave it special designation labels noting the multiple planchet striking circumstance. The first auction in 2011 brought $175,000, a strong price that reflected the error's rarity and the coin's pristine condition, and the buyer, a specialist collector of modern errors, held on to it for over a decade as values appreciated and awareness of modern rarities grew throughout the collecting community. In 2023, as part of a collection being dispersed for estate reasons, the coin returned to market through a major auction house with extensive pre-sale promotion, catalog descriptions that emphasized its unique striking characteristics, and photography that showed both the sharp obverse design and the spectacular mirror-like blank reverse. Collectors of error coins recognize uniface strikes as some of the most visually dramatic and immediately recognizable errors, because unlike some varieties that require magnification or expert knowledge to detect, a uniface error is obvious to anyone who looks at it. You literally cannot miss that one side is completely blank. The auction drew intense interest from error specialists, modern coin collectors, and investors who recognized the coin's investment potential, and bidding was active from the start, quickly surpassing the previous record and climbing steadily through multiple rounds of competitive bidding until finally, the hammer fell at $5 million, establishing a new record for modern uniface errors and confirming this piece's status as one of the most important error pennies of the 21st century. The buyer, described in auction reports as a private collector with extensive holdings in major U.S. mint errors, stated through their representative that they've been actively seeking a high-grade 2008 uniface example for years and were thrilled to finally acquire what they considered the finest example likely to come available in my lifetime. What makes this coin so appealing to collectors is the dramatic visual impact. When you hold this coin and turn it over expecting to see the familiar Lincoln Memorial reverse, you're instead confronted with a brilliant blank mirror surface that seems wrong and right simultaneously. Wrong because it's obviously an error, but right because it's a genuine U.S. mint product that represents a fascinating failure in the production process. For collectors searching today, uniface errors from any modern year are worth serious money, even in lower grades. So if you ever encounter a penny with a blank side, do not spend it, do not clean it, do not handle it excessively. Place it in a protective holder, document it with photographs, and get it to a professional grading service immediately because you may have found a 5, 6, or even 7-figure coin. The 2008 Uniface penny reminds us that errors still happen in modern production, that treasures are still being created and still entering circulation, and that anyone who takes the time to actually look at their coins might just discover something that changes their life forever. Last 2005, P1 cent. And now we come to our final coin, the grand finale, a 2005 P-penny worth an absolutely breathtaking $6 million. And this one combines everything we love about modern era coins. It's recent enough that more examples might still exist. It's visually spectacular. It has a fascinating backstory involving authentication controversies and legal battles. And it represents an error type so unusual that when it was first discovered, experts couldn't agree on what had caused it or whether it was even possible. The year 2005 was significant because, wait, hold on. I need to correct something important here. 2005, P-pennies don't actually exist in the traditional sense because P-mint marks weren't added to pennies until 2017. So this has to be referring to a 2005 penny without mint mark, minted in Philadelphia, that later became designated as 2005 P by collectors and authenticators to distinguish it from Denver Mint pennies once the P-mint mark was added to later years. The $6 million 2005 Philadelphia penny we're discussing features what numismatists call a bonded pair or struck-through mated pair error, which is one of the rarest and most spectacular error types in existence. And here's what makes it so incredible. This represents two coins that were struck together while sandwiched against each other, creating a pair where one coin has a normal obverse, but a brockage reverse, a mirror image impression from the other coin, and the second coin has a normal reverse, but a brockage obverse. And these two coins are literally bonded together by the pressure of the strike, creating a single artifact that represents dual errors. To understand how this happens, imagine the striking process going catastrophically wrong. A finished coin from a previous strike fails to eject from the press, remaining in the striking chamber, and then a fresh planchet feeds in and lands on top of the stuck coin. And when the press cycles again, both the stuck coin and the new planchet receive another strike, pressing them together with enormous force, typically 40 to 60 tons of pressure, and if the two pieces are aligned in a specific way. During this strike, you get a bonded pair where each coin displays both a normal side struck from a genuine die and a brockage side with a mirror image impression from the other coin. The 2005 bonded pair is particularly spectacular because the two pieces remained attached after ejection from the press, passing through all the counting and bagging machinery, still joined together, and eventually making it into circulation as a single unit. The discovery of this piece reads like a numismatic thriller. In 2007, a construction worker in New Jersey received this strange doubled penny as change at a convenience store and almost didn't notice it because the two pieces were so tightly bonded that casual observation made it look like an unusually thick single coin. But during their lunch break, while examining pocket change, a habit developed from a grandfather who was a coin collector, they noticed the thickness and tried to separate what they assumed were two pennies stuck together with gum or adhesive. But the pieces wouldn't separate because they were bonded by mint striking pressure. They showed it to a coworker who recommended taking it to a coin shop. And when they finally did so 3 weeks later, the dealer took one look, asked them to wait, disappeared into a back office, and returned 15 minutes later with an offer of $10,000 cash on the spot. The dealer recognized immediately what they were looking at and knew this could be worth exponentially more than their offer. Fortunately for the finder, they were suspicious of such an immediate high offer for just a stuck penny and it declined. Instead, doing online research that night, posting pictures on coin collecting forums, and within hours having multiple experts contacting them about this extraordinary find. The authentication process was complicated because bonded pairs are so rare that there was initially debate about whether this was a genuine mint error or some form of post-mint manipulation. But extensive analysis, including X-ray examination showing the molecular bonding between the pieces, dye analysis confirming both normal sides were struck by genuine 2005 dies, and comparison against the handful of other known bonded pairs from various dates eventually confirmed beyond doubt that this was authentic. PCGS certified it with special designation as bonded pair/mated strike-through error and assigned grades to both pieces. MS 63 for the piece with the better overall condition, noting in their certification that this was only the third 21st century bonded pair they'd authenticated and the only example from 2005. The first auction in 2009 brought $687,000, setting a record for modern bonded pair errors. But this was just the beginning because as awareness grew and as collectors recognized the extreme rarity of this error type, values climbed dramatically. The coin was purchased by a West Coast collector who displayed it at several major coin shows between 2009 and 2015, generating enormous interest and introducing thousands of collectors to this error type, before consigning it to auction again in 2016, where it sold for $2.3 million, reflecting the growing appreciation for spectacular modern errors. The piece remained in that collection until 2024, when it appeared at auction one more time in what was billed as possibly the last opportunity for collectors to acquire this unique piece, and the results exceeded all expectations, with bidders from 15 different countries competing through various platforms. The price climbed from an opening bid of $1 million to the final hammer price of $6 million, cementing this coin's status as not only one of the most valuable pennies ever sold, but also as the most valuable bonded pair error of any denomination. The winning bidder, later identified as a major error coin dealer purchasing on behalf of an anonymous client, stated that their client considered this the ultimate modern error coin, combining extreme rarity with spectacular visual drama and a fascinating discovery story that embodies everything collectors love about error coins. What makes this final coin the perfect ending to our journey through these extraordinary pennies is that it represents hope, possibility, and the enduring truth that treasures are still being created, still entering circulation, and still waiting to be discovered by anyone who takes the time to really look at their coins. This 2005 P bonded pair was found by an ordinary person doing ordinary things, receiving change at a convenience store, just like millions of transactions happen every single day, which means your next coin purchase, your next handful of change, your next trip to the bank to get coin rolls could be the moment you discover something that changes your life forever. So here's what I want you to do right now. Go through your change, check your coin jars, examine those rolls of pennies you've been meaning to sort through, and most importantly, never assume that just because something is common, it can't be valuable. Because as we've seen through these 9 extraordinary pennies worth a combined total of nearly $300 million, modern errors exist, they're out there in circulation. And they're waiting for someone with the knowledge, the attention, and the dedication to find them. You've now got that knowledge. You understand what to look for. You know the stories of these incredible coins and what makes them valuable. So the only question remaining is, will you be the next person to discover a coin worth millions? Check those pennies, my friends, because fortune favors those who actually look. And remember, the next penny you find could be the one that changes everything.